And the same is true with everything that matters. You count what matters to you, and obviously people matter. On the other side of this are people. So we're going to clarify the touchdown line. We call it the measurable win. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to create something to accomplish that vision. That's the focus question. The third one is how are we doing? That's the reality question. And then this was the one that gets forgotten so much and is so critical. And I call this the culture question. And here's how it goes. What are the keys to success? Because here's what I know. So we've been helping churches now for more than 10 years with a lot of success. And then there's some that just say, it just doesn't work for us. And when they give us the whole, it just doesn't work for us. We've done everything you've said to do, and it doesn't work for us. I think it's question number 4 that's the most important thing to ask in this, and that is, well, then tell me about your culture.
Culture's a big word.
Because here's what I know, Matt, and that is you would probably have better success doing the wrong thing in a great culture than doing the right thing in a bad culture.
That's strong.
Culture's everything. Culture can make things grow that wasn't even supposed to grow. Just the soil is that rich. And so I don't think you can talk enough about culture, and we're kind of running out of time on today's podcast, but probably the best culture lesson I ever learned, I want to pass on to our listeners today, actually came from Pastor Brian Houston at Hillsong. And I love this phrase. It's worth studying all by itself. And that is, you can't build a culture, you can only be one.
That's great.
So anything you want, you have to become. So let me make that plain. In other words, you can't say, man, I wish our church prayed more. No. The best way to create a praying church is to be a prayer yourself. If you want a worshiping culture, well, then be a worshiper. If you want people to invite, Pastor, you would have better success rather than telling your parishioners and your people at your church, you'd have better success than saying, hey, invite your friends. You'd have better success if you would tell the stories of the friends you've invited. And then it stirs up this excitement about it, because being culture is the secret to it all.
So let's talk about our culture at Highlands. Some of the things that we celebrate as a staff, even in our staff culture, what are those things?
Yeah, and we may take a whole podcast just to teach these, because I have a whole lesson around culture. But very quickly is that we love God, we value people, we pursue excellence, and we choose joy. That's honestly, I don't think you can find 4 better ones for a family, a business. It starts with a passion. Of course, our passion comes from our love, relationship with God. I don't care what you're doing, you can't be successful without valuing people. Excellence creates comfort, and it allows people to feel comfortable for things to happen. And then finally, I think attitude and joy, John Maxwell calls it the X factor. It's the most important factor for success. But perhaps we'll have an entire lesson just around these 4. So let me review with everybody one more time, because we're going to bring this thing to a close. So you have to clarify a measurable win. We have to know what our touchdown line is, and then create language to describe it. We're going to create a system that's going to deliver it. We're going to check ourselves to see how we're doing. That's the reality question. We're going to make sure we have the keys to success, which is culture. And then this is my favorite one.
It's a big action step.
Yeah, and it's particularly appropriate for the thousands of pastors and leaders who were just at the Grow Conference, because I get asked this question all the time. Okay, you gave us a lot. They say this whole, I was drinking out of a fire hydrant kind of, they say, so they don't even like, where do I begin? Well, this is question number 5, and I call it the now question. And the now question goes like this: what one thing, if it got better, makes the biggest difference? So what one thing, if it got better, makes the biggest difference? And I always say, start with that one thing. And I use this illustration of a bucket that has wooden slats, and they're all tall except for one. There's one low slat of that wooden bucket. Well, it doesn't matter how tall the other slats are.
That's where you're leaking.
The water's running out
right.
at the level of the lowest slat, always. So the question is, do you know what that lowest slat is? And so many people just don't. I love this question. I think it's the best question you ask yourself. And that is, like, what one thing in my life, if it got better, would make a big difference, make the biggest difference in my life? By the way, the answer changes, because if you'll fix it, then there's a different lowest slat. So it's a great question to ask for our church and staff. We ask it twice a year, every 6 months. We do an all staff, and we answer that question. And it gives us a single top priority at any given time. It's a thematic goal that we can have in every conversation. And I'll tell one story, and then we'll bring this thing to a close. But I never forget, one time we answered the question. It was a lot of people getting saved, very few people being water baptized. And it just didn't make sense. And honestly, it looked like a lot of people. But when we did the third question, actually checked ourselves, it was actually low.
Right.
It wasn't good. In fact, as salvations were going up, water baptism was actually going down. And so we made that, for that short season, our most important thing. And we put together two teams. One did an internal audit and one did an external audit. And basically what that means is we had one group on our team just study us. Did we change anything? Have we stopped announcing it? Let's just look at us and see if something changed. And then the external audit folks went out and looked at churches who do baptisms better than us. In fact, we told them, go find the top 5 churches who baptize more people and come back with ideas. Those two teams came back with 31 different ideas. We implemented 10. Baptisms went up 400%. And that's what I mean by when you have the power of, oh, wait a minute, this is where we're leaking water. I wonder who's listening today. We should ask that question about your marriage. Like, what one thing, where are we leaking water? What one thing, if it got better, would make the biggest difference? And I know this, if you answer these 5 questions, they are the keys to growth.
Thank you so much, PC. That's it for today, everybody.